The night was cold and empty. Wind carried dust across the broken streets of a forgotten colony. Most houses were silent, abandoned long ago after the war. But in one corner of the ruins, a small figure walked slowly, her steps heavy and tired. She was not human. Her skin glowed faintly under the moonlight, pale blue with silver marks that shimmered like fading stars. Her large eyes searched the shadows, but she found no welcome, no door open for her. She had no place to go. For days she had wandered without food, without water. She was too young to fight in the war, yet the war had taken everything from her. Her home, her family, her people. Other survivors called her cursed, a burden, useless. They shut their doors when she came close. To them, she was only another mouth to feed. Her stomach growled. Her hands shook as she pulled her thin blanket tighter around herself. She had hoped tonight would be different, but it was the same. The galaxy had no place for her. Then she saw a light. Far ahead, through the cracked walls of an old human settlement, a faint glow came from one house still alive. A fire burned inside. Smoke curled from the chimney. She froze. Humans were dangerous, or so she had always been told. Stories painted them as cruel, selfish, quick to anger. If they found her, they would throw her away, or worse. But her body was weak, and her heart had already given up hope. Slowly, step by step, she walked toward that light. Inside the house, a man sat at the table. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with rough hands scarred from years of work. His name was Daniel. He had been living alone in this ruined colony, fixing broken machines for trade, surviving quietly. He was tired of war and wanted only peace. Daniel heard the faint crunch of steps outside his door. He stood, alert. No one usually came here. He picked up a lantern and opened the door. The girl froze in the doorway, her eyes wide. For a moment, neither spoke. She looked like a ghost, thin, shaking, her silver-marked skin glowing softly against the night. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. Daniel's eyes softened. She was just a child. "What are you doing out here?" His voice was calm, not harsh. The girl lowered her head. "No place. No one," she whispered in broken human language. Daniel studied her. He could see the hunger in her eyes, the exhaustion in her body. She had been abandoned, left to wander until she fell. Part of him knew the danger of helping an alien child. His neighbors would call him foolish. The world outside would not forgive. Yet another part of him, deeper, stronger, could not ignore her. "Come inside," he said simply. Her eyes lifted, shining with disbelief. She hesitated, expecting a trick, expecting pain. But the man only stepped back and held the door open. The warm light spilled out onto the cold ground. Her legs trembled as she stepped forward. She crossed the threshold, and for the first time in days, warmth touched her skin. The smell of food reached her nose, her chest tightened, her throat ached, and suddenly tears filled her eyes. Daniel closed the door gently behind her. "You're safe now," he said quietly. But outside, in the shadows of the ruins, unseen eyes watched. Not everyone would be glad that a human had welcomed a lost alien child into his home. The girl did not know it yet, but her arrival had already changed Daniel's fate. The room was small but alive. A fire burned in the old iron stove, filling the air with warmth. The walls were lined with shelves stacked with tools, wires, and scraps of machines Daniel had collected. It was not a rich home, but it was steady, safe, and full of quiet strength. The girl stood near the door, uncertain. Her thin hands gripped the blanket tighter around her shoulders. She felt out of place, like a shadow that did not belong here. Daniel placed a bowl of stew on the table. The smell of meat and herbs spread through the room, making her mouth water. She tried to hide her hunger, but her stomach growled loudly. Daniel heard it and gave a small smile. "Sit," he said gently. She hesitated. In her world, humans were monsters in stories told to frighten children. They destroyed planets. They took what they wanted. They cared for no one but themselves. Why would this man offer food to her? Still, her body moved before her mind could resist. She sat slowly, eyes fixed on the steaming bowl. Daniel pushed the spoon toward her. "Eat. You need it more than I do." Her hands trembled as she lifted the spoon. The first taste made her eyes widen. Warmth spread down her throat, chasing away the cold inside her bones. She ate faster, afraid someone might take it away. Daniel watched silently. He could see the fear in her every move, the way she looked around as if expecting danger. Whoever had left her alone had done more damage than hunger. They had carved fear into her heart. When the bowl was empty, the girl lowered her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered in her broken human tongue. Daniel nodded. "What's your name?" She hesitated again. Her people had told her never to share her name with strangers, especially humans. But something in his voice felt safe. "Leora," she said softly. "Liora," Daniel repeated. The name felt strange yet beautiful on his lips. "I'm Daniel." Silence filled the room, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Leora shifted nervously. She knew she could not stay long. Humans and aliens were not meant to mix. If others found out, they would punish him, or worse. She stood slowly, clutching her blanket. "I go," she whispered. Daniel frowned. "Go where? Out there into the cold again?" She looked away. "No place, but safer. For you." Daniel shook his head. "You'll freeze before the night ends. You can stay here." Her heart pounded. No one had ever said those words to her before. Stay. The word was almost impossible to believe. "But danger," she whispered. Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Life is always danger. But no child should walk alone in the dark. Not while I have a roof." Leora's eyes filled with tears again. She quickly turned her face away, ashamed of her weakness. Outside, the wind howled against the broken walls of the colony. Shadows moved between the ruins. Somewhere out there, others were watching, waiting. Leora felt it in her bones. But for now, in this small house, there was warmth. She sat down again, silent but calmer, as if a small part of her had decided to trust him. Daniel stood and brought out a folded blanket from the corner. He spread it on the small bed by the fire. "Rest here," he said. Leora lay down slowly, her body sinking into the softness. It had been so long since she had touched anything warm, anything safe. Her eyes closed, heavy with exhaustion. Daniel watched her for a long moment. He knew this decision would change everything, yet he also knew he could not turn her away. The firelight flickered across the walls, and outside the silent ruins, unseen eyes drew closer. The storm was only beginning. The night passed slowly. Outside, the ruins of the colony slept in silence, broken only by the whistle of the wind. Inside Daniel's house, the fire had burned low. Leora slept curled in the blanket, her small frame rising and falling with each breath. Daniel stayed awake longer than he should have. He sat by the window, staring out at the shadows. Something troubled him. It was not only the danger of keeping an alien child in his home. It was the feeling that they were not alone. Years of surviving in war had sharpened his instincts. He had learned to listen when his heart warned him. Tonight, it whispered danger. At dawn, he stepped outside. The air was sharp and cold, but something else caught his attention. Footprints, small, scattered, leading to his door, but also away into the ruins. Someone had been close, maybe watching. He clenched his jaw. Whoever it was, they now knew. Back inside, Leora was awake, her wide, silver-marked eyes watching him nervously. She sat on the edge of the bed as if unsure if she was allowed to move. "You didn't run," Daniel said, surprised. She shook her head. "Too tired, too cold." Daniel studied her. There was no trick in her eyes, only fear and exhaustion. She was not here to harm him, but others might. He set bread and water on the table. "Eat, then tell me who might be looking for you." Leora's hand shook as she tore the bread into pieces. "People. My people. They don't want me. I slow them. They say curse follows me." Her voice cracked on the last word. She tried to hide it, but Daniel noticed the way her eyes watered. He felt anger rise inside him, not at her, but at those who had abandoned her. A child should not carry such words on her shoulders. "Curse?" Daniel asked. She nodded. "Born with silver marks. Old stories say bad luck, so they leave me behind." Daniel frowned. He had heard many alien superstitions. Ions during his years in the galaxy. Most were cruel excuses to cast out the weak. He had no patience for them. "You're no curse," he said firmly. "You're alive. That's what matters." Her eyes widened, as if no one had ever spoken those words to her before. Before she could reply, a noise echoed outside, metal clanging, a voice carried faintly through the ruins. Daniel's hand tightened around the knife he kept at his side. "Stay here," he whispered. He stepped outside, scanning the broken street. The voices grew clearer. A small group of figures moved through the ruins. 3 men, armed with old rifles, scavengers, raiders who hunted the weak. Daniel cursed under his breath. If they found Leora, they would not show mercy. He went back inside quickly. Leora looked at him, her body tense. She could sense it too. "Bad men?" she asked softly. "Yes," Daniel said. "You must stay quiet. No sound. Do you understand?" She nodded, clutching the blanket around her like armor. The footsteps grew louder. The raiders were close now, talking in rough voices. "Saw light here last night. Maybe supplies, maybe food. Or maybe something better." Daniel's chest tightened. They would search the houses one by one. If they stepped inside, there would be no hiding Leora. He moved to the table and picked up his rifle, old but still sharp. His eyes hardened. He had left war behind, but sometimes war found him again. Leora watched him with fear. For the first time, she realized the danger was not only hers. By helping her, Daniel had placed himself in danger too. Outside, the raiders stopped in front of the house. Silence fell. Then, a heavy knock shook the door. The knock echoed through the small house, heavy and demanding. Dust fell from the wooden beams above as the raiders struck again. Daniel stood still, rifle in his hands, his jaw tight. Leora pressed herself into the shadows near the fireplace, clutching her blanket so hard her knuckles turned white. Her glowing silver markings flickered in the dim light, marks that would give her away if anyone looked too closely. "Open up!" a harsh voice barked from outside. Daniel did not move. His mind raced. He knew these men, raiders who scavenged ruins, stealing supplies, and sometimes worse. They had no law, no mercy. If they found Leora, they would sell her, or kill her, or both. Another pounding fist hit the door. "We saw your light, old man. Don't make us break it down." Daniel finally spoke, his voice calm but steady. "Move along. There's nothing here for you." A cruel laugh came from the other side. "If there's nothing, then let us look, unless you're hiding something." Daniel's grip tightened on the rifle. He didn't want to fight, not again, but he knew the kind of men these were. If he opened the door, they would take everything. Inside, Leora trembled. Her people had always warned her, humans were beasts. They would betray, they would hurt, they would consume. But Daniel, he was different. He had given her warmth, food, safety. Now, because of her, he was in danger. The raiders began to shove the door. The wood groaned. Daniel stepped forward, placing his shoulder against it. His heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. "Last warning," the voice growled. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Leora's breath caught in her chest. Then Daniel acted. He fired one shot through the window. The glass shattered, and the bullet slammed into the stone wall outside. The raiders cursed and stumbled back. "Next one!" Daniel shouted, his voice sharp. "Won't miss. The giant." The ruins fell silent. The men outside whispered, their voices low. One of them spat angrily. "Crazy fool." "Fine, but this isn't over." Their footsteps crunched against the broken road as they moved away. Daniel lowered the rifle slowly. His shoulders sagged with tension, but his eyes stayed on the door. He listened until the sound of footsteps faded into the distance. Only then did he exhale. Behind him, Leora's eyes were wide with shock. She had never seen someone stand against raiders. She had never seen anyone risk so much for her. "You protect me," she whispered. Daniel turned, his face calm but tired. "Of course. You're under my roof. That means you're not alone anymore." Her throat tightened. No one had ever said such words to her. Not her people, not anyone. She wanted to speak, but tears came instead. She quickly wiped them with the corner of her blanket, ashamed of her weakness. Daniel set the rifle aside and sat at the table. His hands were steady, but his mind was heavy. He knew the raiders would not forget this. They would come back, maybe with more men. For now the house was quiet, but danger had marked them both. Leora slowly walked toward him, her bare feet silent on the wooden floor. She stopped at the table, her small hands trembling. "Why?" she asked softly. Daniel looked at her. "Because no one deserves to be thrown away, not you." Her heart ached. The word curse had followed her since birth. But here, in this broken house, a human had called her something else, someone worth protecting. Outside, the wind carried the fading sound of laughter from the raiders, far away, but not gone. The storm was far from over. The morning sun broke through the cracks in the ruined buildings, painting long shadows across the empty streets. Smoke from the raiders' campfires drifted faintly in the distance. Though they were gone from Daniel's door, he knew they had not truly left. Inside, the house was quiet. Leora sat near the window, her knees pulled close to her chest, her silver-marked skin glowing softly in the light. Her wide eyes followed every movement outside, as if danger might leap from the ruins at any moment. Daniel set a kettle on the stove. The sound of boiling water filled the silence. He spoke without looking at her. "They'll come back." Leora hugged herself tighter. "For me." Daniel shook his head. "Not just you. For food, for tools, for anything they can take. That's who they are." She lowered her gaze. Still, she knew deep inside that her presence had drawn their eyes. Ever since birth, the silver marks on her skin had made her a target. Even her own people had turned away, whispering the word curse. She glanced at Daniel. "Why fight them? You could have given me to them. Safe for you." Daniel turned, his expression hard. "Safe? No. If I gave you up, I'd be no better than them. I don't throw children into the fire just to save my hands from burning." Her chest ached at his words. They were simple, yet they cut through years of rejection. The kettle whistled. Daniel poured water into 2 cups and placed one before her. She lifted it carefully, as though it might vanish if she wasn't gentle. The warmth seeped into her hands, steadying her. For a long time, silence stretched between them. Finally, Daniel spoke again. "Tell me, Leora, why do they call you cursed?" She hesitated. Her people's stories echoed in her memory, whispers that her birth had brought misfortune, that her silver marks were a sign of danger. But here, in this small house, she wanted to tell the truth. "When I was born, the skies burned," she whispered. "A star fell from the heavens. My people said it was a sign. They said the child with silver marks would bring ruin. Since then, bad things always happen near me. Famine, storms, death." Her voice shook. "So they sent me away." Daniel studied her face. He saw only a frightened child burdened by stories too heavy for her small shoulders. He leaned forward, his voice firm. "Storms and famine don't come from children. People need someone to blame. That's all." Her eyes widened. No one had ever spoken against the curse before. Before Daniel could say more, a sound cut through the air. A whistle, sharp and cruel. Both of them froze. Leora's eyes widened in fear. Daniel stood and moved to the window. In the distance, shapes moved between the ruins. Raiders. This time, more of them. "They didn't waste time," Daniel muttered. Leora's body shook. "They know. They come for me." Daniel grabbed his rifle and checked the chamber. His face was calm, but his heart pounded. He had lived through too many battles to pretend this would be easy. He turned to her. "Listen to me. If they get through that door, you hide. Don't make a sound, no matter what you hear." Tears welled in her eyes. "They will hurt you." Daniel gave a small, grim smile. "Let them try." Outside, the raiders' laughter grew louder as they closed in. Leora pressed herself against the wall, her silver marks glowing brighter than ever. In her chest, fear and something else stirred, a strange, deep power she could not yet understand. The house trembled as the raiders approached. The battle for survival was about to begin. The raiders spread across the broken street, their boots crunching against stone and glass. There were more of them this time, at least 7, armed with rifles, blades, and cruel smiles. Their leader, a scarred man with a jagged knife at his belt, raised a hand to signal silence. Inside the house, Daniel stood by the door, rifle steady in his hands. His body was calm, but his mind counted every step outside. Too many. If they rushed the door, he could not stop them all. Leora crouched low near the fireplace, her small body pressed into the shadows. Her silver markings glowed faintly, impossible to hide. She pulled the blanket tight around her shoulders, whispering to herself in her native tongue, as if the words might shield her. The leader's voice rang out. "Old man, we gave you a chance. Now we take what's ours." Daniel's jaw tightened. "There's nothing here for you." The raiders laughed. One kicked a loose stone at the wall. Another raised his rifle toward the window. The leader's voice grew sharp. "Then we'll search and see. Open the door or we break it down." Daniel's grip tightened. He had faced soldiers, mercenaries, and warlords in the past, but these raiders had no honor. That made them dangerous. He took a deep breath. "Last warning, leave now." The answer came in the crack of gunfire. A bullet smashed through the window, splintering wood. Leora cried out and covered her head. Daniel dropped low, returning fire. His shot struck one raider's leg, sending the man sprawling with a scream. The others cursed and scattered for cover. The battle had begun. Bullets tore through the wooden walls. The stove clanged as one round struck its side. Smoke filled the air. Daniel moved carefully, firing in bursts, forcing the raiders to keep their distance. But there were too many. The door shuddered under heavy kicks. The wood would not hold for long. In the Shah's adieus, Leora trembled. She wanted to disappear, to vanish into the night, but her body would not move. She could feel something building inside her, heat spreading through her chest, light pulsing under her skin. The silver marks along her arm shimmered brighter with each heartbeat. "Stay down!" Daniel shouted, firing again. But she couldn't. Something inside her was waking, something her people had always feared. Her breath came fast. Her eyes burned with light. The door cracked. Raiders shouted as they prepared to rush in. Daniel braced himself, ready for the final stand. But before the raiders could break through, a sudden flash lit the room. Leora screamed, and the silver markings along her skin blazed like fire. A wave of energy burst outward from her body, invisible yet heavy as a storm wind. The door exploded outward, throwing the raiders back across the street. Windows shattered, the ground trembled. For a moment, the ruins glowed with silver light. Daniel shielded his eyes, stunned. When the light faded, the street was silent. Raiders groaned on the ground, their weapons scattered, their faces pale with fear. Leora collapsed against the wall, gasping for air. The glow of her marks dimmed, but a faint spark still pulsed under her skin. Daniel rushed to her side, kneeling. "What did you do?" Her voice was weak, broken. I don't know. It happens. Sometimes. That's why they fear me." Outside, the raiders scrambled to their feet. Some fled into the ruins, screaming about a cursed child. Others limped away, dragging their wounded. Daniel looked at them go, then back at Leora. She was shivering, her face pale, her body drained. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders. "Listen to me. You're not cursed. You saved us." Her eyes filled with tears. "But more will come. They always do." Daniel tightened his hold. "Then let them come. We'll face them together." In the distance, a dark figure stood watching from the ruins. Unlike the raiders, he did not run. He only smiled, as if the spark he had just witnessed was exactly what he had been searching for. The true danger had only just begun. The ruins were quiet after the chaos. Smoke drifted from shattered walls, and the faint cries of wounded raiders faded into the distance. Daniel leaned against the doorframe, breathing hard. His rifle hung at his side, half empty. Inside, Leora lay wrapped in his coat, her chest rising and falling as she struggled to stay awake. The silver glow of her markings had dimmed, but Daniel could not forget the light that had burst from her moments ago. He had seen many weapons in war, but nothing like that. He crouched beside her. "Rest. You're safe now." Her eyes fluttered open. "No, not safe. Never safe." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, a sound reached him. Slow, deliberate footsteps on stone. Not the panicked retreat of raiders. This was different. Calm. Controlled. Daniel raised his rifle again, muscles tense. He stepped outside, scanning the broken street. At the far end stood a tall figure, cloaked in dark fabric that moved like smoke in the wind. His face was hidden beneath a hood, but his eyes gleamed faintly, catching the weak light of dawn. Unlike the raiders, he did not carry his weapon in plain sight, yet his presence felt heavier, colder. The figure spoke, his voice smooth and steady. Impressive. I wondered if the stories were true. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Who are you? The man tilted his head slightly. A seeker of truth, and I have found it. His gaze shifted past Daniel toward the house. The girl. Daniel's grip on his rifle tightened. She's not yours. The stranger chuckled softly. Not mine, no. But she is not yours either. That child carries something old, something powerful. Do you even understand what she is? Daniel's jaw set. She's a child. That's enough. The figure's smile grew visible beneath the hood. You protect her out of kindness. Admirable, but foolish. That power will draw hunters far worse than raiders. Empires would kill for it. Others would worship it. And you, human, will be crushed between them. Daniel raised his rifle higher. Leave. Now. The man's eyes gleamed brighter, but he did not move closer. Instead, he bowed his head slightly as though amused. Very well. I will leave, for now. But you cannot hide her. Not from me. Not from what is coming. With that, he turned and disappeared into the ruins, moving so smoothly that it was hard to tell when his figure melted into the shadows. Daniel lowered his weapon slowly, his breath heavy. He had faced soldiers, pirates, and beasts, but the calm in that man's voice chilled him more than any battle. Back inside, Leora sat upright, her eyes wide with fear. She had heard every word. Who was he? She whispered. Daniel shook his head. I don't know, but he's dangerous. Tears welled in her eyes. He wants me. They all want me. My people said my birth would bring hunters. Daniel knelt in front of her. Listen, you are not a curse. You're not a prize to be taken. You're a child. And as long as I breathe, no one will take you. Her lips trembled. She wanted to believe him, but deep inside, she knew the truth. The stranger was right. Power lived inside her, power she could not control, and sooner or later, more would come. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. We need to move. This house won't be safe now. Leora nodded weakly, wiping her tears. She looked at him with trust shining through the fear. Where we go? Daniel glanced at the broken horizon, where the ruins gave way to the wide wastelands. Away from here, to somewhere they can't find us, if such a place exists. Outside, the first light of dawn broke over the ruins, but in the shadows, unseen eyes still watched, waiting for the right moment. The game had only begun. The sun rose over the ruined colony, casting long shadows across broken towers and shattered streets. Daniel packed quickly, moving with the speed of a man who knew danger was not far behind. He filled a worn backpack with dried food, water, and a small set of tools. His rifle hung across his back, its weight familiar. He had lived alone for years, surviving with little. Now, everything he had was meant for two. Leora sat quietly at the table, wrapped in his coat. Her silver markings glowed faintly in the morning light, soft but unmistakable. She watched him work, her wide eyes full of worry. Why leave? She asked softly. You're home. Safe for you. Daniel shook his head. Not anymore. That man will come back. And when he does, he won't come alone. Leora lowered her gaze. She felt the heavy truth in his words. Everywhere she went, danger followed. And now, it had reached him too. Daniel knelt in front of her. Listen, Leora, we head into the wastelands. Few dare to go there. That's the only chance we have. Her lips trembled. Wastelands. Dangerous. Daniel gave a faint smile. So are raiders. So are shadows and hoods. But out there, at least we choose our own path. She nodded slowly, though fear lingered in her chest. By midday, they left the house behind. The broken streets stretched out like a graveyard. Smoke from the raider camp was gone, but the silence felt heavier than before. Daniel led the way, his rifle ready. Leora followed close, clutching her blanket tight around her small frame. The ruins soon gave way to open land. The wasteland spread before them, Endless sand, cracked stone, and jagged hills under a pale sky. The wind howled across the barren ground, carrying dust that stung the eyes. Every step felt heavier for Leora. Her body was still weak from hunger and the strange burst of power that had left her drained. Daniel slowed his pace for her, though his eyes never stopped scanning the horizon. Hours passed. The sun burned overhead. Leora stumbled more than once, but Daniel caught her each time, steadying her with a firm hand. Finally, they reached the cover of a rocky outcrop. Daniel set down his pack and let her rest in the shade. He shared water from his canteen, holding it steady as she drank. She looked up at him, her voice small. Why do this for me? Daniel's eyes softened. Because you remind me of someone I lost. Her brows furrowed. Who? He hesitated, the memory sharp and painful. My daughter. She was about your age when the war took her. I couldn't save her. But maybe I can save you. Leora's chest tightened. For the first time, she saw not just a protector, but a man carrying his own wounds. Before she could answer, a sharp sound cut through the wind, a whine, high-pitched and mechanical. Daniel froze. He knew that sound, a scout drone. He pulled Leora close against the rocks. Above them, a black machine drifted across the sky, its sensors glowing faint red. It moved slowly, scanning the ground. Daniel whispered, "Stay still, don't breathe loud." The drone hovered, its shadow passing over their hiding place. Leora's heart pounded so hard she thought the machine would hear it. Her silver markings flickered, glowing faintly under her blanket. The drone paused. It turned as if sensing something. Daniel gritted his teeth. If it detected her glow, it would call others, soldiers, hunters. He raised his rifle, aiming at the machine. One shot could bring it down, but one shot could also give away their position. Leora's small hand touched his arm. "Wait," she whispered. Her silver markings pulsed faintly, and for a moment the drone hesitated in the air, its sensors flickering. Then, with a sudden shift, it turned away and flew off into the distance. Daniel lowered his rifle slowly, staring at her in disbelief. "You did that?" he asked. Leora's eyes were wide with confusion and fear. "I don't know. It listened to me." Daniel's stomach sank. Her power was greater than he had imagined. Greater and far more dangerous. Far on the horizon, a faint trail of smoke rose into the sky. Someone had seen the light. Someone was already following. Their flight into the wastelands had only just begun. The wastelands stretched for miles, endless waves of stone and sand under the pale sky. Daniel led the way. Along a narrow ridge, his rifle slung across his back, his eyes scanning every shadow. Leora followed close, her steps unsteady but determined. They had been walking since morning. The sun now dipped low, staining the horizon with red. Daniel knew they needed shelter before night. In the wastelands, the dark belonged to things worse than raiders. At last he spotted an old bunker half buried in the rocks. Its metal doors hung loose, rusted by years of storms. He pushed one open and stepped inside. The air was dry, heavy with dust, but the walls were strong. It would do. "Here," he said. "We'll rest here tonight." Leora curled into a corner, her blanket wrapped tight. Her silver markings glowed faintly, casting soft light against the steel walls. Daniel lit a lantern, but even without it, the child herself brought light into the dark. She looked up at him nervously. "They follow us." Daniel nodded. "I know. Because of me." His gaze softened. "Because they're greedy. Don't blame yourself." But Leora lowered her eyes, doubt still heavy in her chest. That night, Daniel sat awake, listening. The wind howled outside, but beneath it, he heard faint sounds, engines, distant but real. He clenched his jaw. Not raiders this time. Something bigger. By dawn, his fears came true. The wasteland shook under the sound of heavy transports. From the ridge above, armored vehicles rolled across the sand, carrying soldiers in dark uniforms. Their banners bore a symbol, a burning star encircled by chains. Daniel recognized it. The Dominion. He cursed under his breath. The Dominion was no scavenger band. It was an empire built on fear and control. If they had come here, it was not by accident. They were hunting her. Inside the bunker, Leora trembled as the rumble echoed closer. Them. she whispered. They always come. Daniel crouched beside her, his voice steady. Listen to me. They don't get to take you. Not while I'm here. Her wide eyes shone with fear. But they're strong. Daniel gave a small, grim smile. So was I once. The ground shook as the transport stopped near the ridge. Soldiers poured out, rifles ready. Their commander, clad in black armor, raised a hand. His voice boomed through a speaker. Hand over the child, human. Do this, and you live. Daniel stepped to the doorway, rifle in hand. Not happening. The commander's voice turned colder. You protect her without knowing what she is. She carries a weapon older than empires. That power will burn worlds. Do you wish to share her fate? Daniel's eyes narrowed. I don't care what she carries. She's a child, and I'll protect her. The soldiers began to spread out, surrounding the bunker. Inside, Leora clutched her blanket, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to run, to hide, but something deep inside her stirred again. The same spark that had thrown back the raiders, the same force that had bent the drone. Her silver markings flared brighter, filling the bunker with light. Daniel turned, his eyes widening. Leora. She stood shakily, her small frame glowing with silver fire. I don't want to be cursed, she whispered. I want to fight. Outside, the Dominion soldiers raised their weapons. The commander gave the signal. The battle for Leora had begun. The wastelands trembled with the march of Dominion soldiers. Their rifles gleamed in the pale sun, their armored boots kicking up clouds of dust. At the center of the storm stood a small bunker, and inside it, a man and a child. Daniel braced himself at the doorway, rifle steady in his hands. He had fought armies before, but never with so much at stake. Behind him, Leora stood glowing, her silver markings blazing like fire etched into her skin. The commander raised a hand. His voice thundered through the speakers. One last chance, human. Surrender the child and we'll spare you. Daniel spat into the dust. Come and try. The order was given. The soldiers advanced, rifles firing. Bullets struck the walls, sparks flying. Daniel fired back, his shots sharp and precise, dropping men one by one. But there were too many. Then the air shifted. Leora stepped forward, her small body trembling, yet her eyes burned with determination. The silver fire spread from her skin, filling the bunker with blinding light. Her voice, soft but steady, rose above the gunfire. No more running. The ground shook. A wave of energy burst outward from her, invisible yet heavy as a storm wind. Soldiers staggered, shields cracking, rifles torn from their hands. The sky itself seemed to bend as light spread across the wastelands. Daniel shielded his eyes, but he did not step back. He watched in awe as the child he had sheltered became something greater, something both beautiful and terrifying. The Dominion commander fell to his knees, his armor sparking, his voice cracked with fear. Impossible. The prophecy. It's real. Leora's glow grew brighter, her small frame lifted inches off the ground. Images flashed in her mind, stars collapsing, empires burning, a cycle of fear and destruction tied to the silver fire within her. She saw what her people had always feared, power that could destroy, power they had called a curse. But Daniel's voice broke through the storm. Leora, he shouted, his voice raw. You are not a curse. You choose who you are. Her glowing eyes turned to him, but I could burn everything. Daniel stepped closer, standing in the light that seared the air. Then burn the chains, not the world. You're more than their fear. Her heart shook. For the first time, someone believed in her, not as a weapon, not as a curse, but as a child who could choose her own fate. With a cry, she released the energy, not wild, not uncontrolled, but directed. The wave slammed outward, tearing the soldiers' weapons apart, shattering their vehicles, sending shockwaves across the sand. But it did not touch Daniel. When the light faded, silence fell. The Dominion soldiers lay scattered across the wasteland, stunned, but alive. Their commander crawled back, eyes wide with terror. She will end us all. Daniel leveled his rifle at him. No, she'll end monsters like you. The commander fled, dragging himself into the dust. The survivors scrambled after him, their banners trampled into the sand. The battlefield grew still. Only the wind remained. Leora collapsed, her glow fading. Daniel caught her before she hit the ground, holding her close. Her small voice trembled. I'm not Curse? He brushed a strand of her silver hair from her face. No, you're Hope. Tears slid down her cheeks, but this time they were not from fear. Together, they stepped out of the bunker. The wasteland stretched wide before them, endless and unknown. But it no longer felt empty. Daniel placed a steady hand on her shoulder. We'll keep moving. We'll build a place where you belong, a home no one can take. And for the first time in her life, Leora smiled. Far above, the sky was clear. A new story had begun.